Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I am your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Brendan Eccleston from Brisbane Landscaping Co. Brendan runs a landscape design and construction company in Brisbane, coincidentally. And it was great talking to him and hearing how he's got a different kind of layout for the business as what some other companies do. So he's like a bit of a two-man show at the moment where he's doing design. He's got another fellow working for him doing the construction side of things on site, but also using a lot of subcontractors so that he can still build his own projects. And he had a great start to his career. So he was doing a lot of different things in maintenance and then construction, but working for a franchise was he learned a fair bit doing that. So that was a great thing to do as well. So he talks about how it's not all that profitable, but it's almost like you're paying for your education. So he was able to implement those things he learned later on, and also loved how he's had some back issues, but he's worked out the positives out of it as well. So you can see the silver lining to just about any situation. But also, he came on for a chat on a Sunday afternoon, so I can't thank him enough for that. Really appreciate it. And that's the reason that this episode exists, is because Brendan gave up his time to come on. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Brendan Eccleston. Well, Brendan, thank you for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
How did I start? I guess even from a young age, without understanding the draw towards landscaping, I found myself even through high school doing like work placements on school holidays through different landscaping companies. Left school, jumped around a few different jobs, some construction, some in hospitality, and then found myself starting a lawn and garden business on the Gold Coast. I think I was 20, 21 years of age at the time. So nice and early and ripe. And yeah, I guess from that, it was just a slow progression into, you're mowing, hedging, mulching, doing all these things. And you get the odd client saying, oh, do you mind, adding this into the garden or doing this? And yeah, slowly progressed from there. And here we are today.
So had you worked for many people other than the short placements doing that kind of work before you starting your own?
No, I hadn't. So there were only sort of small 2-week windows work experience through school. Then sort of went off the beaten track a little bit in different construction roles. And then sort of found myself falling back into it from the maintenance side of things. So from there, I guess a lot of it, plant knowledge, horticulture stuff I sort of took it upon myself to reinvest, to go to TAFE to do my horticulture cert, then sort of level up my own knowledge that way. Then I got about 2, 3 years into running the business. It was part of a franchise group, which comes with its pros and cons. But yeah, after about 3 years of running the business, a mate of mine approached me and said, I've got a business opportunity back in Canberra to go into a partnership doing the landscaping, the construction side. So I came into his business and sort of learned the construction side under him.
And what was the franchise that you were working for to start?
It was a James Lawn and Garden Care.
Yeah, I reckon they added them down here as well.
Yeah, yeah. So after 12 months of running my own sort of franchise, I ended up becoming a trainer for the group. So would actually fly around Australia training new franchisees. There's pros and cons of, I guess, that in the sense of if you've never run a business, you're stepping into something that's systemized. There's a procedures manual. You get at least a week of training in knowing how you're going to approach or attack, quoting a project. It might be as simple as mowing a lawn, but you're starting off with a process and a system in place to find that. And positives, they did deliver, I guess, the same training to everyone across the board. So if you're a client that's in Victoria and you move to Queensland and you use the same service, you're going to get the same service in the same state. So,
What are some of the cons for it, franchising?
oh, I think it's just probably going into it young and naive. So you're paying a franchise fee. You're trying to fight nail and tooth to get your profit where it needs to be. And they're putting their hand out at the end of each week saying, this is due, this is due, the franchise fee side of things. And then I guess there are limitations around like service areas as well. So if you're going to build your business, I ended up building mine up and then selling it off. But if you're building your business outside of your target area, then obviously the next franchisee comes in, buys that area, you're going to hand them clients over to that prospective new franchisee. So
Did the franchisor take any cut of the sale?
yeah, and I think that's the
Oh,
the again the cons of it. It's almost like a bit of a pyramid scheme, and the longer I was there, the more I started to see that present itself. And at the time, I was only 21, 22 years of age, but there was still enough sort of happening where it was like, yeah, this isn't maybe the best fit for me.
was there stuff that you learned there, like the systems and procedures that you took into that next business that you work with?
Yeah, definitely. So a big one, obviously being service-based industry as well, was just that initial phone call or that service inquiry. So if someone's searching for a particular service, I can see it's different now in sort of design and construct. But if someone's just looking to make or book in a quote, if you don't answer that phone call within that 15 minutes, they're probably on to the next Google search or whatever it is. So they'll just, yeah, they've got plenty of options to look at. So being responsive and getting back and just making that initial contact was a pretty big one.
Yeah, it's funny, like you can get like caught up in yourself thinking I'm really busy and you're trying to get stuff done, so you don't want to answer the phone when it rings. But then if you think about the time it takes, because you're gonna have to call them back anyway if you're gonna have a
Correct.
respectable business. So you might
Yeah.
as well just do it now and get it done. Then you don't
Yeah.
have to listen to the message and then ring them back. So and also they're not good at because it won't even be 15 minutes. I reckon if they ring, no one answers, then they're doing it now, so they'll go to the next person straight away.
On to the next. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I guess, again, just reflective, hearing, having worked with a number of clients now over the years, and I guess it's trade-based businesses don't have the best rep for good customer service or just doing the basics. So that was something that always stuck for me is if you can do the basics, you show up on time, you clean up after yourself. It sounds really basic, and it is, but I think it goes a long way.
Yeah, because so many people don't do it. Like the amount of times I've had a client say, "Ah, you turned up on time. It's a nice
Yeah,
surprise."
yeah,
It's so easy to stand out in front of like
yeah,
75% of people in the industry
yeah,
just doing
definitely.
those basic things,
Yeah.
just the one percenters. So you learned the construction working with your mate there. So how long were you there for?
Again, it was a short-lived period. I'd moved from Queensland back to Canberra at that point to go into the partnership. More lessons learned along the way. So going into business, and we were sort of friends or mates outside of that. It's 12 months in, the honeymoon period starts to wear off. You start to have your indifferences. So we sort of called it quits after about 2.5, 3 years. It just wasn't working out for either of us. Then we just went on different directions. At the time, I was probably sick and over the Canberra winters. So for me, it was an easy move back to Queensland after that.
And did you learn a lot while you're working there about the construction side of things as well?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Really opened my eyes to it. I hadn't been exposed to much of it. I'd worked in different construction jobs prior, but I guess what I have noticed as well, different states have different ways of doing things. So even that there was a transition going from back down there, there's a lot of, say, if you're doing a paved area, it's a lot of road base, screeded sand, run the whacker packer over it, get it all nice and even. Whereas up here in Queensland, a lot of it's direct stick to concrete. So there's just little things like that and adjustments to make along the way. But I guess it was all the principles and foundations of the construction side that I picked up and then slowly just evolved myself.
Yeah, and another thing I've noticed as well, like because we worked in Queensland for a couple of weeks, and we were tiling, like using tile
Yeah,
adhesive straight onto the slab. And like
Yeah.
in Victoria, the majority of people will use mortar onto a slab.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then other
Yeah.
places use the flexible base. And
Yep.
I think South Australia, you have to have a specific license for paving, whereas
Yep.
other places it's just a general landscaping license. So
Yeah.
so many different ways to do things.
Yeah, that's it. Yep, for sure.
So with the construction side of things, then were you doing any designs at all at that point?
No, and I guess that's the part of that progression as well. I found myself loving landscaping and wanting to do it. Got to a point where I was like, I'm sick of doing like the same sort of rinse and repeat type project where it's not really exciting to jump out of bed and go, yeah, I'm going to go lay a 400 by 400 paver. Like, and don't get me wrong, some people, that's their bread and butter and that's what they like. But for me personally, it was being able to see something can go, yeah, one day that's the type of work that I'll be doing. And yeah, so from that point, it was basically sometimes a bit of a hand sketch on a piece of paper with a quote. This is what we're going to provide, and this is how we're going to do it, and then go through and do the project. Whereas now it's much more of a, I guess, a refined process. And stepping into that design side of it, I feel like has almost given me a second wind in the business. I get excited about, going and meeting a client on site, taking their design brief and starting to sort of come up with the concept on the spot. Or if not, I'll find myself driving 2 days after the initial consultation and something would just pop into my mind. And I'm like, yeah, that'll look really good. So part of that first concept, it's almost like a evolving process.
Yeah, I just had one of them yesterday. I had a design consultation, and sometimes, yeah, like you say, when I'm on the site, sometimes I can think of exactly what will look good, and it starts flowing straight away. But other times
Yeah.
I just get just blank and just nothing's coming to me, and you just got to work a bit harder for it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's so much more enjoyable when you can start thinking and you're on the same page as the client. Like the style that they want is what you
Yeah,
want anyway.
definitely. And do you find if that's coming maybe from like a creative block if you're busy elsewhere? So you might be flat out doing the construction or install side, and then
Possibly.
you step into another space and it's a bit of that real estate between the ears is sort of taken up.
Yeah, don't know, because I'm always busy, always got a million things going on through my head
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
I reckon fatigue would have a lot to do with it. Like if I'm
Yeah.
tired, then I can't
Yeah.
think of anything. Like I
Yeah.
can't talk properly. Like it's just the
Yeah.
fatigue really gets me. But yeah, it's I don't know whether it's yeah how much sleep you have the night before or how much work you've got on or what it is, but sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
And I think it would come naturally to some people more than others as well.
Yep.
But yeah, exactly like you as well. I'll be driving along or in the shower and think that I get good ideas there, just thinking
Yeah.
about it. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, whereas if you just try and rush it, that's why I don't like doing deadlines because if you just want to get something done by a certain deadline or for a design, you
Yep.
might not come up with the best idea for it. You just sort of
Yeah.
doing it
Correct.
as a transaction. Whereas if
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
take your time and do it properly, then you can get a better result.
Yeah, and I've found obviously if we're presenting a first concept plan as well, then we might go through a revision process. But then when we're actually on site, there might just be something that sparks. So if you have the client's trust and there's a bit of, I guess the design process still has its structure, but it is fluid. Just recently, we've completed a project, and that sort of came into play on the fly, and I feel like it was a something that I hadn't thought of or missed initially until we're feet on the ground and working on the site and say, oh, how about we change this for this and bring in a different material choice for one of the steppers, and I think yeah, end result sort of speaks for itself.
Is that the concrete steppers with the brick one?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that so much. It looks awesome.
yeah. And it was a simple conversation with the client. Just said, "Oh, I've got a couple of these recycled bricks left over. If you need to use them, by all means, there they are." And sort of standing there scratching my head for a little bit, I thought, "No, we could do something here if we just integrate it a little bit, pick up the same detail. So connecting, I guess, what's existing as well, and then bringing that continuity through sort of helps it. It looks like there's cohesion between the two
Yeah.
finished products. And
Yeah. Yeah. And doing it like the similar sizes and as well makes a big difference. So yeah, it all just where it works perfectly together.
yeah, yeah.
So when you did go back to Queensland after being in Canberra, what did you start doing first up?
Again, I did go back and work for a couple of other landscapers just to get myself back on my feet, so to speak. Again, some of them on the smaller side in the residential side of things. And then I did about a 6 month stint with a commercial landscaping company in Brisbane as well. I think that was what I needed to let me know that I didn't want to be an employee. It's probably one of the most challenging times. You show up and you do your job every day, and some things are just being done just for the sake of doing them. And the logic in my head's like, we're just wasting time. This is going to have to be pulled up and done again. And, at the end of the project, the commercial one, there was literally things that were just getting pulled out and redone because the site foreman hadn't followed procedure or listened to the project manager. And yeah. And that type of thing, don't enjoy it.
Yeah, and some people don't care. Like they just care about
Yeah.
getting a paycheck, and that's all that matters. They don't care if they're doing the same thing multiple times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't stand doing like regardless of whether you're getting paid to do something, I don't want to do it twice.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, just demoralizing.
Yeah. Yeah, I sort of take that approach into every sort of project we take on, and at certain times it can be at my own detriment. But it's taking that little bit of extra time, do it once, do it right, and from a frame of what would I do if it was my place. So that way, there's no shortcuts. There's no, oh, we might just skimp on this or that. It's like, no, this is why we're here. The clients have trusted us to come in and deliver a project, and that's what we're going to do.
I actually put more care into clients' jobs than my place. I
Yeah,
don't care about chip pavers or crooked
yeah,
lines, but I think it doesn't bother me that
yeah,
much. But when I'm working on someone else, I think no, I've got to do it properly because you never know
yeah,
what they're going to be like. But
yeah.
so what were you doing after the commercial project? Where'd you go to?
So yeah, I bootstrapped my business back up when I was in Brisbane. It was called DMC Landscapes, which was design, manage, construct. Again, that was something me again, and with the level of maturity that I had at that time was, oh yeah, that's a good business name. Abbreviated, people don't know what it stands for. There was no real meaning to it. And I started to put myself through a bit of business training at that time as well. Because I'd say one thing is I've found with small business, it can be quite isolating at times. And there's no real, here's a book, you follow, there's multiple ways to do one certain thing, but I didn't really have, I guess, a role model or mentor. So again, just hungry for knowledge or understanding where I could see where the potential was. So I started back off in Brisbane as DMC Landscape, started doing a bit of business training, and then said, all right, well, now I know who my client is, my ideal client, and then rebranded to Brisbane Landscaping Co, which was going to put us in front of the right people organically from a Google search perspective, but also the shift and feel of the brand was probably the same as what the client was looking for as well.
Yeah, it seems like if you have co at the end of a business, it seems like it's more fancier.
Yeah, yeah. Or it sounds like a bigger organization. And I'd say for the last, I don't know, 3, 4 years, it's only been myself and one other that are in the business. So it's still quite small and boutique. We do have a handful of good subbies that we use as well. But yeah, it's the perception of what people see and hear and is sometimes completely different to.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of the times it is.
Yeah,
There's a million businesses that I think of that they're nothing like what you think they are.
yeah, correct.
Yeah, bigger or smaller or less
Yeah,
professional or yeah, there's
yeah.
Yeah, it's like names are important to start with, but at the end, it's more the reputation that carries it forward.
Correct. Yep.
So, did you start doing mainly construction and maintenance? Were you still doing that with when you started the Brisbane Landscaping Co?
No, it was just purely landscape construction at that point. Then again, we were sort of after the rebrand landing in front of sort of some better clients and the type of market that we wanted to play in. Then it got to a point where I guess as the jobs were progressing, so were the expectations and so were the details and the finishes and all the rest of it. So for me personally, it was like, all right, we need to be able to see what we're doing before we've started. Um, and that's when I was probably 12, 18 months later, I started to introduce more of the design aspect. Now looking back, I'm like, I don't know how I completed projects in the past without a plan. Like a lot of it's up here, and you've got to try and communicate that to say two or three different people. But having that plan in place, the way I look at it now is almost for everyone involved, it's a form of visual communication that, you know, you and I can pick up the same plan and interpret it for what it is because it's visually showing you what's going to be where.
Yeah, and then your client doesn't see you build something and say, "Oh, I didn't know that was happening there." That's
Yeah,
good. It gets a
yeah,
nice surprise.
yeah.
So, did you do any design training?
Yeah, so I've been to TAFE and done a diploma of landscape design. A lot of what I've felt and had learned over the past, say, 10 years, I feel like was almost more self-taught than just going in and getting the formal qualification. So yeah, and it's one of them things. It's ticking the box to say, yep, you've got the diploma. This is what the training was. But I think I'd already completed 60 or 70 designs before I'd started the diploma.
Did you still learn a lot?
Yes and no. I'd say the experience, whether it's right or wrong, but I've just felt like a lot of it's geared for you to become an employee. And there was probably, I think there was maybe 23 of us in the class, and I would say 20 probably would sort of go in that direction.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends where you're at in your own business and what your goals are with doing landscape design as well. So
Hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating whether yeah how like teaching places target that kind of thing. I remember when
yeah,
I studied horticulture, there was a guy there who was a landscape designer working for himself at the time. So
yeah,
there were some people who were trying to get work in the industry like myself, and there were other people who it was just a hobby. So they were just studying horticulture to learn more about it. And then there was people who already had their own business and were doing
yeah,
design. So yeah, it's a fascinating mix, I find when you go.
yeah, yeah.
So did you like stop doing construction completely and then start subbing it at some stage?
Yeah, so that's been in the last, I would say, almost 2 years now. Again, stepping back, having a smaller crew and seeing the construction side, how resource heavy it is. So, you can go down that path and take everything on in house and have it all under one umbrella, which is completely fine. For me, it was more about how can we service multiple clients, still do a really good job at what we're doing, and making sure everyone's sort of getting their jobs completed in a time frame that suits as well. So using the subbies more so from the hardscape perspective, and then we'll come in and do a lot of the softscapes, the lighting, all the finishing touches, feature trees.
What sort of lighting are you using?
I actually use a company in South Australia. They used to be LED Outdoor. Now they're Allura
Oh yeah.
Lighting.
Yep, I've heard of
Yep.
that.
Troy. Again, same thing. I'd used different companies in the past, and they were local here in Queensland. You'd put your order in, and you're like a 7 to 14 day turnaround for local product. I can call Troy before 2 o'clock on the same day. If I overnight them, they come from South Australia, land on my doorstep sometimes the next day.
Yep.
And they've got really good product range as well. So I just feel like if you're adding all the bits and pieces in, again, there's a cohesive feel with even the lighting choice that's being installed.
Yeah. Yeah, I do lighting plans in all my designs because it's just one of the most underrated things of a garden design. Like it's not cheap,
Yeah,
but it makes such a massive difference and sort of gives you another dimension in terms of being able to look at it at night as well.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And if the clients, on an average job, I'm not sure what their say the average spend would be, but if you can then showcase that at night when you're sitting inside, if you've got a couple of focal points through windows or what have you, or you pull up at home and lights flick on, you get to utilize it 24/7 if you want to
Yeah.
keep them running that long.
Yeah. Well, luckily they're LED, so they're not too expensive
Yeah,
these days.
yeah,
But like when you're driving down the street at night, like no one looks at the houses that don't have any lights on their
yeah,
front garden. But if you
yeah,
see a front garden that's all lit up,
yeah,
you look at it because it just draws your eye. So
yeah.
a lot of people want their front yard to look good, so you might as well make it look good day and night.
Look good. And I've had clients recently even mention it from like a security perspective. If they've
Yeah,
got their lighting on at a certain time on a timer, or what we're seeing a lot more of is the smart home integration as well. So all their lighting systems are hooked up to their mobile phone with outdoor speakers, irrigation, the whole works. They can be in another country and turn their back speakers on if someone's snooping around. So it's
yeah,
pretty amazing.
yeah. Like even the like if you're robbing a house, if you're looking at a house that's pitch black or one that's got lights lit up all over the place, you're not going to go to the one where people can see you.
Yeah, correct.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I did see on one of your Instagram posts not too long ago that you'd had a lot of back pain that you recently got fixed
Yeah.
up. How's
Yeah.
that going now?
Not ideal.
Right.
Still a bit of a challenge. I would say this past 12 months has probably been the most challenging that I've had. It was just an ongoing issue with protruding discs or bulging discs on the nerve. It's been on and off manageable for, say, 5, 6 years. And then it just got to a point where it progressively got worse and worse and worse. I tried every modality under the sun to try and fix it and rectify it. And it got basically funneled down to, right, we needed to do the surgery and alleviate the bulge off the nerve. So went in, had the surgery. 2 weeks later, start getting some pain back. 6 weeks later, MRI. They're like, unfortunately, the same thing's happening again.
Yes.
So surgery didn't go as planned, or yeah, it's frustrating. You can't get a clear cut answer either to gain a better understanding for myself. The surgeon will happily sit in front of you and say, "Oh, look, it hasn't worked, but we're happy to do it again." I'm
Yeah.
like, that's a hard sell.
Yeah.
There's no
And
guarantee that the same thing isn't going to happen.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I'd recently had a sore tooth and I had to get a root canal for it. And like I'd never had that much pain, like just prolonged. So that made me
Yep.
have a more empathy for people who go through chronic pain. But
Yeah.
it's just debilitating. And that's your whole life is just revolving around what you're doing to try and not make it any worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel for anyone going through that.
Yeah. It was quite alarming. Like it's the physical pain and then the impact that it can have on your mental health as well.
Yeah.
Because, like you mentioned, it's just so consuming. It's every little movement, there's a constant reminder that, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. It felt like someone said, hey, I'm going to make you run your business, tie both hands behind your back and one of your legs. It's like I felt useless, like I could barely do anything. But again, it's you just got to persevere and keep pushing on, and there's always a positive that comes from, I guess, any negative experience as well. From my end personally, it was all right. You're getting to a point now where that situation alone put the spotlight on how dependent your business is on me as an individual. all right, now what are the steps to put in place where I can remove myself, if it be 2 weeks or 4 weeks at a time, and everything's still rolling along seamlessly. And that sounds easy, but you would know yourself as a small business owner, there's a lot of moving parts at any one given time. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's an awesome way to look at it too. Um, yeah, it's like it's not ideal to have to go through it to understand that that's how the business runs, but yeah, if you can take a positive out of it, might as well.
yeah, yeah, that's it. It's, you've got a choice in how you look at it. And if I choose the other option, it doesn't serve. It's just poor me, why me? Or,
Yeah.
all right, this is shit. It sucks. What can I do differently moving forward?
Yep. And did you find out whether it's happened from like manual labor or is it just something that can happen anyway?
Yeah, I think it can happen to anyone. And I think the surgeon that I went to is really big on like healthy movement patterns and the way we even move as a society, the way we sit down. There's no real training on them little sort of incremental details. So again, not the ideal outcome, but very educational process to go through to learn and understand things. It's like people are looking at, your mental health, your physical health, and now there's another column that's your spinal health. Like, how do you sit correctly and sleep and move and do all these tiny little details that, again, as you know, being in construction and landscaping, you're constantly bending over and lifting things. And
Yeah, back before I had my spell working at the bank, so this was 15 years ago, no, 12 years ago, I had a bulge disc as well, but not, well, it wasn't that bad. And then I had acupuncture and then stopped. And then I worked at the bank, so I wasn't doing the manual stuff. And
yeah,
then luckily it's never come back. But yeah, sometimes you get lucky.
yeah, that's it.
But I assume you've tried that as well before that.
Yeah, tried the acupuncture. Yeah, literally everything
Yeah.
you can think of. I was on a decompression table, so they strap you down on a table and they slowly stretch your spine out to allow a bit of movement and some fluid to get back into the disc so it can self-repair. Yeah, nearly everything you could think of, I've given it a go. Because it was one of them, you hear horror stories around back surgeries of them not working and failing, and once you start, you can't stop type of thing. So I did try to prolong it as long as possible, but yeah, found myself just going this. Yeah, there's no other option, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, surgery around the spine can go south pretty quick.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Pretty
So how long you got
sensitive.
work for?
So I was physically off work for 2 weeks. As you know, as a small business owner, it's not really 2 weeks off. There's always an email or a phone call or something that needs to be done. Then I slowly just started to get back into being able to drive after 2.5, 3 weeks and go around and maybe do a site visit and organize some materials for different bits and pieces. But I'd say this whole year I've maybe been on the tools 1 or 2 days, just with the pain and everything else that comes with it. It was, yeah, just not worth the
And
risk.
how do you go to sitting down at the desk all day?
So I had to shift everything to a standing desk. Even at a standing desk, if I was there in the same position for too long, it wouldn't be pretty. So again, that process of learning to maybe operate and do things differently, or putting yourself in a position where you're trying to be creative and come up with a concept design, and you just got this constant pain cycle just repeating itself. Yeah, that's the side of things that I think people don't see or don't understand. That it doesn't sound like much and it's not really physical, but I couldn't stand still for 5 minutes without being in pretty horrific pain. So it was, swapping stances, standing desks. I'd have to walk away for 5 minutes, come back, and then get back into it. So, yeah, it's only been probably in the last couple of weeks I'm able to sit back down.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a challenge. Like by the time you get yourself going, then you're going to go for a walk again and come back, and then you think
Yeah,
what it was, and then you get yourself going again and say it keeps repeating itself.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything you're doing with this with the fella you got working for you or your subcontractors about sort of their spinal health or anything like that?
We've always just sort of had them conversations. So for me personally, I've constantly had some form of back pain or problem, but it seemed to be a lot more manageable. I would know, all right, yeah, this is, I've overdone it if it's been a heavy day on manual labor or whatever it may be. Now it's almost the first topic of conversation if anything comes up around if it's an awkward lift, if it's bad access. And I think as we get older, we become a little bit wiser in the sense of how we're going to complete this project. So everything from mine, even through that quoting phase, is looking how can we do this the most efficient way? It's still cost effective, but not as labor intensive because we are a smaller company. It allows us to, I guess, move a little bit quicker in that way.
Yeah. 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 That's there's a lot of people who are doing a lot more machine work for that exact reason to
Yeah,
reduce the amount of physical labor that everyone's doing.
yeah,
And as long as you're allowing for it, then you're not going to make any less money.
yeah, correct.
You'll make
And
more money because you'll be able to get more done because you won't be exhausted.
yeah, and that's the plan. Doesn't always go to
Yeah.
plan, but even using, and it might be a smaller job like a footing in a backyard where, you know, 5 years ago would probably get a couple of guys on wheelbarrows and barrow it in. Now it's like we'll just get a line pump and pump it. It's quick, it's efficient. No one's really busting themselves or it's just little details like that. Using soil blowers a lot these days, quite
Mm.
common. Access is getting a lot trickier too, I would say. Everyone's maximizing the size of that build on the block. So
Yeah, one of the unfortunate things for my employees is that I love pushing wheelbarrows. Like I
yeah,
like doing it because you don't have to think about
yeah,
it. You just fill it
yeah,
up, walk, tip it, and just
yeah,
keep doing that over and over again. So there's times where I don't make the things easy because I love that kind of thing. But like we did a concrete pour of 5 cubes not too long ago, and we pumped it in. So
yeah,
that would have been a rare for me to do
yeah,
prior to that. But I've got a massive job that's just about finished, and we've got at least probably 30 cubes of mulch to put in there.
yeah,
And I'll just be getting truckloads and barring it all
hand,
week.
yeah.
But it's only mulch,
And
so it's not bad.
I guess there's a time and a place for all of it. But for me, it's like, yeah, it's how you're feeling at the end of that day, 8 hours in the sun, pushing wheelbarrows, and sometimes half of it's loading it as well.
Yep.
It gets discounted, but knowing you to go back and do the same thing tomorrow, it's like, all right, how can we do this a little bit differently? It's still efficient. It's been priced into the project. And then, yeah, just get things moving a bit quicker from our end anyway.
So how many projects are you building that you have designed? Like, are you doing any projects that someone else has designed or?
No, so I sort of looked at it maybe 2 years ago where it's like we only really want to design and construct. So design our own projects and build our own projects. There's probably a lot of missed opportunities along the way in saying that, but for me personally, there's probably enough work there for us to be booked out sort of months and months and months in advance. And then that's probably one of the biggest things from mine that I enjoy is being able to see that design come to fruition. And there's been the opposite where I've designed the project and then handed the plans on to someone else. You go back and check the work and you can see the finer details are sort of lacking or missing. So yeah, I give the client opportunity if they say, look, we've got someone that we want to use, by all means, go for it. But yeah, I just like sort of keeping it all in house and doing design and construct instead of
Yeah.
construction only.
And how are you getting the types of projects that you're wanting to do? So like rather than the 400 by 400 pavers, designing those like
Yeah.
on the higher end ones.
Yeah. I feel like the rebrand itself made us look and feel a touch different. A big thing, and it's come up in conversation a couple of times just this week, was investing in good quality content. So the jobs that you're doing, they're already looking really good, but spending that little bit extra to get a professional photographer in to take the right photo and make it look or showcase the project the best way possible. And then even doing like a little video edit of the finished product or project itself. I would say the world that we live in now, everyone's got a phone in their pocket. Everything's information's really easy, accessible. So if they're looking or planning on a landscape design, so to speak, they're in the Brisbane area, they start searching. We just want to make sure we're, up there with or find there we're landing in front of the right people and what they see is what they like. And I think it comes down to good quality content, spending the money on the quality content. Yeah.
Do you enjoy doing the Instagram side of things?
Yeah, I do. So I do all of that in-house. I do pay professional photographers to take the photos, but yeah, personally, I've bought myself a camera recently because I think it's part of the creative side or process. There'll be a certain job or angle that you'll just see something and it already frames up. You're like, that would take a good photo from that position. So I actually enjoy that side of it.
Yeah, that's something I wonder about some photographers. Like they're amazing photographers, but just having a sort of more of a horticultural lens, I think can make a big difference.
Yeah, yeah,
The right
definitely.
shot.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's good. Like iPhone cameras are good, or phone cameras, they're good. But
yeah,
yeah, when you see an actual photographer's work and like
yeah,
using all the right settings and shutter speeds and everything, it's just
yeah,
phenomenal.
yeah,
Like it often
definitely.
looks better in the photo than what it actually does in person.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like, someone can do a really good project and take a couple of snaps themselves and they're not doing justice to the project. If you sort of tie the two together, then everyone gets the best outcome.
Yep. Yeah, I'll find myself doing that because I'll just be doing shooting around all chest height photos, all exactly the same. Whereas you
Yeah,
spend a little bit more time, get the right angles and shots, and you can
yeah,
make a huge difference. And the more photos you get, the more you can post, and it doesn't necessarily need to look like the same project as well. So you can use different.
yeah, correct. But I think people want to see that as well. They want to see it like if you've I get slack at times, like the job that I've posted recently with a recycled brick, that was completed around December last year.
Yeah.
So it's only been shot, a couple of weeks ago. But again, there's a time for the garden to grow in and all the rest of it. But sometimes I'll be really onto it and, I get consumed with something else and it drops off and then I'll pick it back up. But it's always there in the back of my mind just to constantly keep it updated.
Yeah, if you've got a what's the word, like a pipeline of projects, so you can always be like a year or two behind of the ones you're photographing once you eventually
Yeah,
get to that. So
yeah,
you could say, yeah, we just finished this job. We'll come back in 2 years and take photos of it, and then
yeah,
start promoting it because you're already promoting jobs from 2 years ago that look because they look so much better when they're not like just a 6-inch pot of a ground
yeah,
cover, whereas
yeah,
it's got to be 2 meters wide instead when it's actually grown. So
yeah, definitely.
yeah. What computer program are you using for your designs?
So we use Lumion and CAD. A lot of some of the designs, I'll actually hand draw everything first, depending on my workload and how busy I am, then go to outsourcing the digital side of it, purely on the basis of if I'm busy, that could be 4 or 5 designs in one week. So it's a long process. So drawing it all by hand, yes, for me personally, that's where I feel like I can then start to shift and change things as well. Very, I'd say more on the old school side of things. But again, when there's me and so Aaron's the other guy that's he's majority on site. If I'm navigating 4 or 5 designs in 1 week, sometimes that could be my whole week and weekends.
Are you starting and finishing 4 or 5
I'm
designs?
not finishing, no way in the world.
I'm just
No.
working on
So
different
yeah,
ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
starting all, and I
Yeah.
guess even in that process, it might be, I'll go to site, take them initial site photos, start drawing or hand drawing the first concept design. And if that's happening sort of 4 or 5 times in 1 week, not to mention everything else that's going on,
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be
And do you use Lumion do you do like 3D images or is it just sort of
yeah, yeah,
elevations?
yeah, images.
And where about like what if you don't mind sharing, who you get to do the digitalizing of the
Pitchbox.
oh yeah.
So Justin and Heidi. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
I've been
nice.
working with them now for a few years. So
Were you working there when Shah was running the
yeah,
show? Yeah.
yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Awesome. Last question for you, Brendan, is who do you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast?
A good guest. Probably Jamal from FCG Landscapes in Sydney.
Had him on years ago. He was
Oh,
back in
did you
early day. Yeah.
already?
Love
Yeah.
his work. I bought one of his
One of his prints?
yeah.
Yeah, same.
I got
Yeah,
a Yucca Restrada, I think it was.
yeah,
Yeah, I love it. It was the black and white one I got.
yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I seen when he popped that up as well and jumped on and grabbed one of the black and white prints as well.
Yeah. Is he
Yeah.
still doing that?
I'm not sure. I think it's probably the same as any sort of, you just get busier and busier and
Yeah.
the side project maybe goes
Yeah.
to the back seat.
Yep. Yeah, I reckon it would have been like maybe episode 17 or something that I had him
Oh,
on.
really?
Yeah, real early. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love his stuff that he does.
Yeah.
All right. Can't thank you enough for coming on today, especially being a Sunday. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Not a problem.
extremely appreciate your time coming on and sharing your story. And yeah,
Yep.
I love seeing what you do. So thank you very much.
No worries. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.